I'm tempted just to discuss and leave my presentation completely aside, because you made some very good points which which would deserve to be replied. Mary has introduced the Commission basically on two aspects. We are setting the regulatory framework and we are sending out money. I was a little bit disappointed that you didn't mention we are doing the intelligence. No, actually not, because if you look at precisely where the big difference between DG Regio, DG Research and DG Enterprise is, and where you say why we should coordinate much better, it doesn't work and it cannot work because we have completely different mandates. The mandate of DG Regio is to assist the regions in developing their structures in order to have similar living conditions across Europe and to encourage cooperation for the sake of cooperation. Yeah? Really for the sake of cooperation. The regions should do something together, and that's a value in itself. DG RTD is implementing a European research program where they said it has the mandate to do a European research program without harming the possibilities of member states to have their own research programs. But it is their responsibility for own money to make best use of it and to show impact. I'm the weakest among these three because under industrial policy we only have the mandate to coordinate member states' policies when needed. And the only thing what we can do is basically to sit together with the member states and say, do you think we need some coordination in the field of SME support? Because you are spending an awful lot of money and we think that it is not used in the most effective way. Yeah, this is intelligence. And now you can imagine that we are doing projects in order to become more intelligent, and DG Regio is doing exactly the same thing just to encourage regions to cooperate, and DG Research is doing exactly the same thing just to get out something of their own programs. So we really have to work with these three, we have to understand these three completely different mandates of what we do, and then we can start to collaborate. And in this way, I'm responsible for a policy learning platform of innovation agencies across Europe. What I will present here in the first part is basically where their thinking is. What we have developed out of it, yeah, where we are going and which conclusions we draw. And then we can only hope that you say, if you're starting the next project for a network for business support, first look what the EEN is doing and don't recognize after 3 years that they are there. If the Commission has invested into this already 100 million. So first part, I will rush through where we are, what our thinking is. Do SMEs really need big support? Do they deserve big support? Or are we actually wasting a lot of money there if we are not doing it right? And in the second part, very quickly, 5 questions to your network, which you can discuss when I'm away, because the train connection to Brussels is pretty difficult, so I have to run. Halt, I'm there. Business support is basically drawn between two complementary objectives. The one is we want to help to realize SMEs' objective, development of possibilities, potentials. That's below the waterline. That's my whale there. And then we want to see that something develops out of this and that we basically get regional development or on the European level competitive industries. This is above the waterline. But there we address two very different challenges and very different bottlenecks. You see there, if you can read it, what are the major challenges for SMEs to realize their potential? They have a lack of financial means. That's always the money is the first. They have a low skills in networking. This is what you mentioned, that what you address. They have poor skills in innovation management. That's why we already know that they are wasting a lot of our money, our public funds. And they have a poor IP management, and they even don't look into the IP database where what they want to develop has already been published 6 years ago and would be available and for technology transfer. That's all internal to the SME, which bottlenecks which we want to address through public support. On the top line, above the waterline, where do we have the barriers to create really competitive industries? We have an awful lack of smart specialization. Every region wants to have its biotech network. We have an awful lack of smart growth. Look at Spain, what happened there. The growth came basically from the construction sector, and everybody was thinking if we grow, we are rich. And then the banking sector failed because nobody wanted to buy these. The growth. And finally, we have what is more inherent, an awfully bad SME support. We have difficulties to scaling up. We are not addressing the issue how SMEs scale up their activities. Export promotion is only one side of it. Our procurement is not innovation friendly. The public side is not playing its role in procuring the most innovative solutions because they want the secure ones. And finally, study from 2009, 2/3 of SMEs are dissatisfied with the innovation support they receive. So we have an awful lack of good methodologies to deliver support. Now I want you to ask one thing. Which SME agencies would consider the right side, Instagram, as a success if they would have invested in this company? You know Instagram? Instagram is this picturing service linked to Twitter. The company was 12 months old when it was bought by Facebook for $1 billion. And it employed at that moment 14 people. Imagine your agency would have invested into this company. Would you regard it as a success? Or would you say, okay, it's a nice story, but it's not a success? The impact from Instagram on the regional economy in Silicon Valley or in California or in the US is exactly zero. It was bought by Facebook and it ended up there. Our big success story we always tell from Europe is Skype. At the end, Skype became a part of Microsoft, and the big winners from Skype are basically American pension funds and Arab investors. They made the deal. And the only region which benefited effectively from Skype is Tartu in Estonia, where it originated, with around 400 people working for Skype there. Luckily, they really made a lot out of it, which would be a completely different story to tell there. Yeah? So this is a success story at the end for Tartu. For Europe, 400 people, we could have made more out of it. Oops, this was the wrong direction. So, 2 visions of entrepreneurship. Just place yourself. We are somewhere between the US and China, and we have to be aware of it, that we are neither the one. We don't want to be China, we don't want a command economy, but we are also not the other. We are also not a free market economy where we say that the industrial renewal comes from new entrepreneurship, and we are proud of that in our stock markets 80% of the companies are newcomers. Sorry, I don't see the point. Why are many people making the US a reference point for innovation if they don't even manage to set up a high-speed rail system? They are very good in supporting individual entrepreneurship, in making few people rich in very short time. But when it comes to systemic changes of industries, they are awfully lost. And they admitted that we are far advanced in this. And we are somewhere between the Chinese policy, top-down, market expansion, cheap manufacturing and then export the products, and the American model of globally sourcing the best minds, the best ideas, scaling them up very fast and hoping that wealth trickles down in economy. What we have not yet succeeded is to build our model and to formulate it. This is what we have to do we implicitly have it everywhere, in DG Regio, in DG Enterprise, in DG Research. But we never come up with something which is really the European innovation and regional development model. Very briefly on this, I wanted to explore on that a little more in detail. Basically, we have a study made on shipbuilding. How did shipbuilding regions which were in decline all over Europe changed and where did they change to? Some moved, like down there, into heritage industry, linking very strong the old sites to tourism. Some moved into knowledge centers. Some, like Bremen, moved into the industrial shift domain, where a strong political commitment meant that the shipbuilding sites basically changed to renewable energies and are now very extremely strong wind clusters. Where the wind cluster already perceives that we have a next change, industrial change happening soon, where we have to change this cluster again. Every of these strategies to transform an industry can be successful, But what it always needs is a strong political commitment of the region to go into that direction and to say, yes, forget about the shipbuilding. It will no longer work in our region. We want to dismantle all the shipbuilding yards, and we want to do it real estate on it and basically do some tourism there, or real estate. Or we want to specialize on those where we have been unique, welding. And the political commitment is the basis of transforming such industries. Now, the transformation needed, you can only succeed in the transformation of industries if you have a strong stakeholder involvement. You cannot do it against the will of the industries, of the people who are doing business. It needs the entrepreneurs, which are the renewal force. Yes, you need entrepreneurs supporting the brightest minds with the best ideas to contribute to this process. But they have to contribute in this framework, in the policy framework you set for the transition. It's not of much help if you have suddenly a bright biotech company if you want to transpose shipbuilding industry. You need a long breath. It takes ages until you have achieved such a transformation process. And you need a very systemic approach. Systemic meaning affecting the whole body. A very nice pharmaceutical interpretation of systemic. It affects the whole system. It is not systematic, which means I have planned, I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this, and then the third step, and then the fourth, and then I have. This would be systematic, but it's not necessarily systemic. So you have to design support systems in this transformation process which support the entrepreneur in one way, support the established enterprises, and all that with the view of creating systemic effect. Now we have one instrument which is in Europe everywhere and which is extremely strong in that respect. This is cluster. Cluster initiatives basically are already an expression of the political will of a policymaker to say, yes, I see that these enterprises together as a network have a dominant role for me to play. I'm betting on them, I commit to them. And I want them to they provide already the stakeholder platform for such transition processes. So that's why we basically give so much importance to clusters as a means to SME support. And we say no longer supporting individual enterprises, but basically, sorry, not to say no longer supporting individual enterprises, but clusters providing the framework and the system to support an individual enterprise. At the extreme, it doesn't matter if you have a young software entrepreneur, a startup company, perhaps he has an idea to go into gaming, but for his first client, he would not mind working for an automotive supplier to program his machinery. At the end, it comes to the first client he has. And maybe he can do some intelligent gaming in the context of automotive industry later. That would be systemic, intelligent support for entrepreneurship, contributing to the change of industries. When I do finally get these two knobs right here. So here you have what we see in clusters, which role they can play. I'm not going to details. Basically, the cluster provides the room for the networking within the cluster provides the young entrepreneur an idea of the room he has for his innovative idea. It provides him already the first clients. Together, they would develop a new value proposition, which is a new set of ideas, a new competitive offer on the market. If you have in the cluster involved financial actors, if you have internationalized cluster activities, working with partners, you can basically very early internationalize the businesses or help him to internationalize his businesses at a very early stage. And finally, if you orient your clusters towards emerging industries and say, no, my cluster is not static. I know that in 5 years' time, my cluster for wind energy will look completely different because they will face an increasing pressure from Chinese manufacturers, and they probably will provide more services. Then basically this orientation towards the future development offers the new space for entrepreneurs of the next generation. So our support, what we advocate is, yes, we need the support for SMEs, in a system, and the system shall basically be, look at what clusters, what business networks you have, commit to create these structures, and then we are making 3 offers. The one, the European Cluster Excellence Initiative. So how do we distinguish good clusters from bad clusters? What does a cluster management, successful cluster management mean? Second, an orientation towards emerging industries to keep basically this development circle running. Not to say tourism is tourism and will always be tourism. Tourism will be something else in 10 years' time. Maybe experience, maybe sports, maybe based on culture, maybe based on sunbathing, I don't know. But it will be different in it will have taken up a lot of IT. So where are the emerging industries where industry developed too? We will invite cluster organizations, excellent cluster organizations, those which have undergone some benchmarking, to basically develop projects demonstrating such new value chains under Horizon 2020. It will not be the biggest action, but it will be the intellectually most very demanding action. And finally, cluster and internationalization. We want to invite cluster organizations to jointly explore third markets. Supporting an individual company to go abroad might be necessary and it might be justified. And he might deserve, if he has a real vision of where the markets can grow, you should do it. But you also should explore, is it really what gives the return to it? And should you not go serve with at the same time, many SMEs at the same time coming from one sector, meaning building your internationalization activities on clusters. This part we will support through projects under the so-called COSME program. An interplay of COSME and Horizon 2020, you see what we have in mind is a completely new type of SME instrument, which gives a new new type of support for SME innovation projects, not based on the technological excellence, but on the business potential they can demonstrate. On the other side, competitiveness, competitive industries and SME support, more based on clusters under the COSME program, with the vision of industrial change. And then 2 areas of overlap in the middle. Financial instruments have budgets in both parts, Horizon 2020 and SME and COSME. It doesn't matter that they are in both parts, because at the end we are working via well-accustomed intermediaries, meaning the European Investment Bank and regional banks, so the SME will not know where the money comes from. So that would not disturb. And the second joint instrument, the Enterprise Europe Network, it is established under COSME, but it will provide more and more services related to Horizon 2020, in particular into connection of this SME instrument. This is our way of addressing one other systemic failure. Many SMEs which receive so far project support because they can write good proposals don't have the internal structures to translate it into growth. So we are combining in the SME instrument project support, financial support, with a coaching services to say, look, do you really have the things in place? Have you really looked through IP? Do you have a strategy to protect your own and to manage your own IP? This we will do via the EEN, but not through the EEN. I had discussed about this a little bit this morning. And then finally, under 2 special actions, the one Eurostars will maintain. This is an action for research-intensive SMEs. And second, the policy learning of SME support. This is where I'm from. It will also stay there, and learning together with the agencies, very often, unfortunately, with the national agencies. Yeah, so we cannot reach down to the chamber in Oldenburg for policy learning, because the chamber in Oldenburg doesn't have much power to influence to design programs. I hope Oldenburg is not in the room. Normally happens to me. If I make such a point, the people are in the room. You are in the room? No. So that was in a wrap-up. What we mean by systemic support, basically channeled through clusters, providing then support to SMEs in context. 5 questions to you as a network before I have to run. Where do you create impact? Where do you really think your level of impact creation is? Is it the level of the individual SME? Your own organization? Are you doing it for the sake of developing your organization and at the end not the SME? Or at the end the Baltic Sea region? do you want to contribute to the competitiveness of the Baltic Sea region and really create impact on that level? None of this is bad. None of them is better, one better than the other. But you have to look at what you can achieve, what are the indicators, and how much money do you spend in it, and how do the individual activities look like. Saying, I'm supporting individual SMEs, whatever they are, I give free access to everybody and will everybody serve without doing any segmentation of activities, will likely not result in strengthening the Baltic Sea region as a whole. Choose your strategy and really reply to that answer, to that question. Do you offer clearly defined complementary services to a target group, to a defined target group of SMEs? I have just shown here you some other innovation support structures or collaboration support structures, and you will be surprised about this one, LinkedIn. Sorry, if I'm looking for expertise today, I'm searching LinkedIn and I'm not searching the EN database. Definitely not. Yeah? LinkedIn doesn't provide me support services, but it definitely provides me the best information about people. And then if I feel confident enough, then I will contact these people and I will work on my own. So does it in consequence mean that we are always supporting those who cannot do it and who will never do it? Critical question. Or should we build or should we build new services on top of those what the EN is already doing and what LinkedIn is already providing? Cuckoo. What? One example where this is already done is basically the UK. UK has established the _Connect platform. This is basically Facebook for innovative companies, where an individual company can create its innovation network of collaborators. And the UK, the people who are connected there, the private consultants and the public consultants, join these networks and are assisting the SME to make the best use of the context they have established. The question is, this is only possible through social media. Does your network already embrace the power of social media in this respect? My goodness, I'm not asking you to create a new Facebook, yeah? But are you thinking in that direction? And finally, is the Baltic Sea region big enough? And this is the right focus. This is the mapping of economic power by GDP in 1990. This is in 2015. And I spared you the picture for 2030. It was there as well. Just to say it's much more greenish and much more yellowish, and the pink part is not growing. Yeah, so the growth potential is definitely not in the pink and blue part. Is the Baltic Sea region enough for supporting internationalization of SMEs? So finally, I hope that I get this right.